So let's just get right into it. We're going to start off with Mark, who will give us the Aspen updates in an instant.
Yeah, thanks, Morgan. We've got a lot today, so I'm gonna share my screen. Just a little bit bigger there. All right. Lots of good stuff today. We, of course, like always, don't have quite enough time to go through everything, but the full release notes are available. aspentest.com, admin release notes. I'll pop a link in the chat as well. So feel free to follow along or check them out later for all the stuff that we don't have time. Like we normally do, we'll come back to Aspen Lita in a little bit, and Jordan will demo that for us. So we wanted to start out with, we made a bunch of updates to formats and taking a look at where those are loaded from, what fields, added some new things. So as like Playaway adds their book packs and wonder books and all of those new things that they keep adding, we want to make sure that we find those. So we're doing that, as well as some of the 4K and the Blu-rays. We're doing more with like pop-ups. So all of those great things. I won't demo those, but if you have any questions, let us know. But we're really excited. And these are all, of course, driven by working with our partners, and you all are saying, hey, we've got Wonder Books now. Can we identify those? So thank you, everybody who's given input on what those are, how they're cataloged, so that we can make sure that we display them for you. Another thing we did is allowing filtering of Hoopla titles based off of genre. So this is in response to, Hoopla gives you everything. Of course, these can be blocked within the Hoopla interface. Sometimes though, because Aspen is doing such a great job of highlighting everything, it's really nice to be able to hide certain collections, at least from Aspen. So we, in the Hoopla settings, you will actually go into your Hoopla settings, and then you'll go into your scopes. And in those scopes, there is a list of genres to include down here. So you can list those all out here. Each filter gets its own line, and you can use regular expressions if you want. So the use cases we've seen so far is a lot of people wanting to suppress some of the erotica that's in Hoopla. So if you add erotica there, it will get rid of them after the next one. If you want to completely get rid of it, they use two terms, so erotica and erotic, and those will get rid of them after the next index. And then we're only doing that based off genre. So if any of the cataloging within Hoopla is incorrect for that, you'll need to contact Hoopla, of course, to have them update it. We can only kind of go off the data that we have. But a nice way to kind of target some collections that might need targeting. We've also done a lot with, go back here to our release notes. So at one of the last community gatherings or Aspen gatherings, I forget which, we talked through the 490 field for series indexing. That is now done. So if you don't have an 830 or an 800 field, we are going to look at the 490 field for the series information in order to display that. So nice way to kind of look at the way people really catalog. Even if the 830 is official, we all catalog stuff in the 490 as well. So that's good, and you'll notice that. The other thing that we've done, we've got a special library that we're working with that is using some 773s. And what that is, if you look at the MARC spec, we'll go to, so it defines parent-child records. So if we go in here, we can look. So basically it's defining what the parent record is. And this will allow us to then display a list of things that that a book contains or that is contained by it. So again, this is kind of for a special library, so we're not sure how some of the public libraries and academics might use this. But one potential thing to do would be like if you're cataloging like Naruto or some of the manga on a single record, you could potentially have multiple layers to where the main one will show up within search results. So you would only find one instance of Naruto. And then each individual edition of that or volume would have its own record, and you could see what it all contains. So one potential thing there, or for some of the serials or that kind of thing. So we'll be curious to see how all people use that, but it should be a really neat thing. We've also added lots of interface updates. So let's just take a look through. So within the grouped work display, we've added the ability within the search results to show the search result tools at the top of results. I'm going to uncheck this real quick and save just so that we can see what it normally looks like. So normally here we're searching for Bambi. We get all of our search tools down at the very bottom here for RSS feed and emails and saving searches, etc. And we've had people want to show that up at the top. So now if you go into search results, check that on. And then we'll repeat that same search. So now up at the top, we've got our search tools with a little drop-down list. So we can do a save search or email the search, get an RSS feed and all of those spotlights adding to browse. So a little bit easier for people to use, especially with all of the new functionality we have for saved searches to get notifications. We wanted to make that just more obvious for people. So you can save those searches. When that goes into responsive mode, we're gonna have a button that brings up the search tools. So it'll be similar and sorting and all that kind of thing. So we wanted to make it, without this being a pop-up, it kind of exploded all over the screen. So we wanted to make sure that it was easy for people to read and use. So we're always thinking about that mobile design as well. So then several things with theming that are really fun. So we've updated the header footer. So we now have the ability to say, whoops, it's at the top, making the header and footer full width. So let's do that real quick. So right now we've got our header that is in line with the results. We'll save this. And now the header, the menu, and the search box all go full width of the screen. So as I make this a little bit bigger, we can see that it takes up the entire screen. Something we've had requested quite a bit and wanted to do that, make it easy for you all. Also, so inspired by Darian, one of the things that people have been copying is their cover images. So they've done some really nice CSS work to make it kind of give a background floating image. So we have a new cover image style where we can make it shadowed or floating. And just go to the browse page. So here, doing that will automatically change that style for you. So you don't have to copy CSS, you're able to just do that. So we're interested to see who all uses that. So it's exciting work and make it nice and easy. We've also added the ability to, oh, and I should have mentioned, so in addition to the header, the footer also changes. So the footer is full width as well. So just the content is kind of that little bit more fixed width, which winds up being a lot more readable for patrons to have that fixed width, but the header expanding looks really nice. We've also added the ability, we've noticed just as we're working with a lot of people on implementation, I forget who the first library to do it was, but setting up a background image that in some cases takes the place of the logo or is just used as a background image. So we wanted to support that, make it easy for people to do that. So down here we have the header background image. So I'm just going to pick an image. I've got some nice fall foliage here. So I'm just going to save that. There's a couple of options. So you can choose to have it cover the entire background or just constrain it based off height and width. So typically that winds up being height restricted, but it could be width restricted as well. And it just makes sure that we don't resize the image or stretch it at all. So I'm going to leave it at cover. You can also, especially if you're using that contain, choose to repeat it in either the X or the Y or both. So let's just save that. Oh, I've got to do one more thing I forgot. We've got custom CSS on this that we need to disable. So we're not going to see it yet because of that custom CSS. So let me just go down into our custom CSS and we're going to get rid of this temporarily, and then we can see how it looks. So there we go. We've got our fall. We've got our logo floating above that. So a nice way to kind of change things, or if you do have some specific style, you can do that. Of course, you want to make sure that your logo looks good on top of it, and kind of try to minimize the size of the image so that you're not forcing everybody to download like a really, really, really big image every time they go to the page. So just a couple of different things you can do there. Lots of other updates. Let's go back to our release notes here. So that's all of our interface updates. Library holdings. So we have some libraries that are using an 852 and 866 to display holdings. This is another MARC standard. So in this case, we're using this to display location codes, shelf location, descriptive information for the holdings. You do have to, because these are loaded from two different fields. Both the 852 and the 866 have to have a subfield 6 that is used to link those, and that's talked about in the MARC standards as well. So here's an example of how that looks. So we've got library holdings, so the library name, shelf location, what copies are being held. So we can see that if we want backyards and barnyards, if we go to Fremont, we get, see 5 years of it. Some libraries are only keeping current year. So you get an idea of what all is held before you have to actually place a hold. Okay. And with Symfony, the way that those are exported from Symfony, they actually export separate MARC records. So they export pre-MARC records. So we're actually recombining all of those MARC records in the export and automatically putting in subfield 6 for you. So that is easy. A lot of little Koha updates. So auto renew for Koha. We're just updating some of the display message. If the item is on hold for another user within checkouts, just some updates to materials requests and some other formatting. Big thing there is we've had some issues where with a patron's home library, if they change it in Koha, there could be a case where the pickup location got out of sync with the patron's home library. So if that does change in Koha, we're resetting the pickup location in Aspen as well to match. Just because some people, that happens and then they don't let people actually change their pickup location. So it got stuck on an old location. Let's see. Some other little things. So this is kind of a cool option. So again, this was mostly for our special library, but we've got some 856 links that we're showing as that we need to show without side loading or anything. So in this case, you do still have to have an item, and you have to have a first record of, or a first indicator of 4, second indicator of 0. That's the way the MARC standards indicate that this is the actual resource, or it's an HTTP resource. And here's kind of a little contrived example that we came up with. So here, this record does have an 856 with a 4 and a 0 going out to YouTube. And we now show an Access Online button that will go out there. So if you click on that, that'll go there. And this is a story time from, I think, LA Public. To turn that on, you will go to your grouped work display settings, and under, down here under the full record display, there is show 856 links as Access Online buttons. If that's turned off, and we save it, then here for our story time, then we're just not going to show it. And that is off by default, so you'll need to turn that on if you want to use it. So we'll go back through and turn that on. Then we've made some really fun updates for searching. Just as we get more and more complicated consortia, we've found some cases where if a library is restricting to only see their materials on a default search, there were some cases where you would get no results found, and it was kind of confusing what was going on because there were results for the entire consortium. So I'm just going to start with a blank search here. And so here we're defaulting to the Laramie County Library System. On the formats, so if we look at the music vinyl record, in this case, Laramie doesn't own any, but there are others in the consortium. So we'll apply that filter. What it was doing before was it was showing that there was nothing available, which was just kind of confusing. So we're doing now similarly to what we do with search results. So we're going to say, hey, we are showing results for all wild libraries. You can click the link to search just the Laramie County Library System as well, and which gives you the same, hey, there's no results there, but there's other ones. And same thing, you can click on any of the links. So wanted to do that just so that people could find those. We're also doing the same thing with different searches. So if for some reason I was in a series search or an author search, and I did a search, it would give us something that might not give results. So if I search for geysers, if I can spell it, we're going to spell it wrong anyway. So there, it got us Genesis's. Let's do geyser. So geyser by series. So here it's saying, again, showing the results using the keyword index. We can search instead by series. Most of the time people are looking to get results. So in this case, I'm searching for geyser information. Searching by keyword is what I want. If I want to search by series index, I could as well, but I'm not going to get results. So I can go back and search by keyword. So just little things we can do to help patrons use the catalog a little bit more effectively. Both of those, so if you have the spelling suggestion autocorrect off, it will also disable those functionalities. Some more things, so self-registration. We're having libraries do more and more with self-registration. So we've added some new functionality. So this one will affect everybody. So we've got a new setting within location settings to determine if a branch is valid for self-registration independently of if it's a valid pickup location. So that's going to be in your location settings. So like, so Bookmobile is a good example. We don't necessarily want people to self-register to be Bookmobile users, but we do want them to maybe be able to use it as a pickup branch. So here we can say, Bookmobile is a valid pickup branch, but you can't self-register for it. And that again, regardless of ILS, that'll work for you. As long as you're doing a ILS-based self-register or the self-registration through Aspen, we're displaying that form. We're also doing, we added new functionality for, in this case, Symphony only, to be able to register adult cards, minor cards, and to opt into SMS notifications. So we'll update those notification preferences for the user. And those can both be disabled. They're off by default. And you can choose if you want email and phone number to be required. Lots of other stuff that we'll skip over. Did want to show Web Builder. So for people creating Web Builder with images. So here we've got, let's go back to this page. So here we've got an image. And for good accessibility compliance, we want to make sure that we can add alt descriptions. So this could be like woman. Get exactly what it looks like, but so that will display as alt text when you hover over it. So wanted to do all of that. We also, for basic pages, added the ability, so if you are restricting pages to certain people, so if you have login, if you're requiring login to access it, you can restrict based off patron type, but you can also now restrict based off the patron's home location. So we have a library that's going to use this for doing some redirects for e-content. So if you need to validate that a patron is a valid patron of the main library before redirecting off to e-content, you could use that as a landing page and then use it as a referring URL. Other things, we made some updates for Hoopla to the way that, so the metadata for Hoopla episodes within a season of a TV show were causing some issues. So those are now indexed properly so that you can see all of the episodes within a season of a TV show. We did update some of the default colors for default themes. So new installs, we're so where this is by default gray now, it's going to be white, and some other things on the home page just to make things look a little bit sharper by default. For consortium, we've added the ability to copy a bunch of things. So grouped work display settings, grouped work facet groups, permissions for roles. So you can copy a bunch of those. You can select all roles within sections. So things to make setup a lot easier for people. So if you're setting up a consortium, it's a lot faster now. So and then we also added, again, for our special library, they don't circulate anything. So we've added the ability to hide all of the circulation modules. So you can hide checkouts and holds and the library card, all of that kind of thing. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jordan to talk through LIDA.
Okay, thank you so much. Let me get my screen shared while that's coming up. I do want to mention for LIDA, we made some updates to volumes. So we had some circumstances where volume level holds weren't working, and those are working now. But assuming everyone can see my screen, the big thing that we have to share today are the custom notifications in LIDA. So what you see on the screen right now are two different kinds of notifications. The top one is the one that we talked about last month. So this is when you have a new title, add to your saved search. The bottom one is the new one. And you'll see when we set these up, these are completely configurable by your library, by location, by patron type, and they can kind of be whatever you want them to be, including the emoji support with the little leaf there. So I'm showing you these as part of a PowerPoint slide because our emulator that we usually use to demo LIDA doesn't do notifications, but they do work. So I just kind of want to clarify why we're not doing a live demonstration. So patrons do have to set up notifications in LIDA. So they need to go to their preferences, which you can get there from my account is how you get to preferences. They need to toggle on, they go to manage notifications, toggle on allow notifications, and then they'll have two different preferences. So right now, because we have two different notification types, they have the saved searches and alerts from your library. So they could say, no, I don't need to know about new titles in my saved searches, but yes, I do want to know about alerts from my library. So let's get out of there, and I'm going to show you how to set these new types of alerts up. So here I am in Aspen Discovery Administration. I'm going to go to local catalog enrichment. So this is where you do things like set up your system messages. They're kind of similar to system messages. But down here we have the new LIDA notifications. So here we have all of the notifications that we've used so far on here. You can filter these like you can in most of the other parts of admin by a couple of different fields that we have. So once, right now you're not going to have a lot, but maybe someday when you have a lot of notifications, you can kind of narrow that down. Adding a new one, we'll start a blank one. I'm going to go ahead and edit the one that you saw earlier, though, so we can see all of the different options that we have. Okay, so Autumn is now with the library. That is the title. So let's actually go back here and you can see it, the notification. That's up there at the top. And then we have the general body of the message with emoji support, like we said. And what I really like is that we have just some guidelines down here for creating your message. So the difference between iOS and Android, how many characters are allowed before it's truncated. iOS, it's total number of characters. Android, there's a difference between the message itself and the title and whether or not that message is expanded. If you've seen those notifications on those platforms, it's pretty intuitive what those mean. So then comes the setup. What you do is you choose a date and time to send it on. This one was last on October 5th at 12:30. The send time is the same time zone as the server. And what LIDA does is it looks for new ones every 15 minutes. And if it sees one that has not been sent, where the time has passed, that's when it will actually trigger it to send. So the time has to have passed, it hasn't sent, and then LIDA will send it again. The next field is the expiration date for the notice. So this is if the patron doesn't kind of dismiss it or click on it, it doesn't stay on the phone forever. This is how long it should stay. This is important for things like if you have an event in the evening that's being canceled and maybe you're just notifying patrons that the event is canceled. If somebody happens to be camping and they get back 2 days later, they don't need to see that notification anymore. That you can go ahead, they can just completely miss that notification. You can have it expire after it's ceased to be relevant. Okay, next we get into how you set up where that tap on the notification goes. To start, you have two different options. The first is a specific screen and app. I'm going to show you an external website first because it's just a little bit easier. You just put in a URL right here and it will take them right to that site on the app. You can see we had a test notification for banned books. There's a page on the library website that's responsive about banned books. You can just put that right in here. If we choose a specific screen on the app, you have all of these options for where within the LIDA app it should go. So if I wanted to go to a specific browse category, then I select browse category. It's holding onto my search term here. And you would put in the browse category there. If you wanted to put in a public list, you would put in the list ID. I had searching for a specific term for mine, so that's autumn. In addition to the searches, we also have user profiles. This is within the patron. So if you wanted to send people to their profile page, for example, or their preferences page, or something for linked accounts, these are just all of the different areas that you could send them within Aspen. Then we have the options for how to customize it. So you can send it to specific libraries and or specific locations. So again, with the idea that maybe you had a water leak, so you have to close a specific branch and you wanted to let everyone know, you could narrow that down to just the branch that you want to send it to. We also have it by patron type. So if you were sending a notification for something like an adult book club or a kids, maybe the kids don't have phones, maybe they do, kids story time, you could do it that way. This will just pull in your patron types. So another use case here is that if all of your staff have the app and you need to notify them of something like, hey, give them a heads up that there's bad weather and the weather's going to impact the library, you could send a notification that way to even just staff. This little notification sent, you want to leave this unchecked before it's sent. This is what kind of lets you know that Lida has sent it. If you uncheck it, Lida is going to look to send it again. Like it said, it's going to always look for things with dates in the past. Once it sends it, it's going to check this little box here. So those are the custom notifications. We do have permissions for these as well. Actually, let's go right up here into permissions. So like anything else that relates to a library system or a library location, I'm not going to save these, so I won't pay attention to the role. We do have permissions for who can do this. So viewing notification reports, send notifications to all libraries. So this is kind of the mother preference. And then letting people send notifications to their home library or home location, home library, and then the home location. Just like anything else where we have, it's the permissions for specific library locations or library systems. So that is what we've done with Lida. Any questions there or any questions that we haven't been addressed in the chat for this release?